standing dead trees, or snags, are really important habitat features in the natural forest. It turns out that after a tree dies and it's no longer able to defend itself from insects and things, then lots of organisms can get into the wood. This one has exit holes from wood-boring insects. It has excavations where woodpeckers have gone in for feeding. And up at the top, there's a nest cavity excavation. Primary cavity excavators, woodpeckers, making these oval cavities in a standing dead tree where they nest. And when they're done using them, they'll go make a new one, and other organisms live in these, including flying squirrels. I understand that on Bainbridge you have flying squirrels, Douglas squirrels, and small owls, saw-whet owls, that will use cavities. So this habitat feature right here is one of the best things you can have in your forest. So if you have them, protect them. If you don't have them, consider making some. Snags. So when you see a piece of standing dead wood, and you see this little round hole like this, kind of cute, you know, you think, oh, that's made by a woodpecker. So woodpecker, like this hairy woodpecker, that's a study skin borrowed from a university, they have a chisel and a tweezer attached to the front of their head. And you've all seen them banging on trees, you know, why don't they get concussions? Look that up. But look what they do. So you see this little hole out here, they make this cavity that's about 1, 2, 3.5 times deeper than the diameter of the hole. And this is a great place to raise young, very secure. The enemies can't get at them very easily. They have a high fledging rate for their young. The males and the females will brood the youngsters, and every year they will either fix one or make a new one. So it's part of their behavior. They got to do it. They're like do-it-yourself people. They gotta make a cavity like this. Well, what's really interesting is after they've finished with their cavity, sometimes they'll roost in it, but they might go make a new one. And this is a really coveted piece of habitat, food, water, cover. So woodpecker serves as a keystone species, i.e. one that can influence the environment beyond its single presence, and it can turn a solid piece of wood that's soft enough into cover, food, water, cover. So when the woodpeckers are done with it, there's a whole bunch of other animals that will come in and use that created cavity. And by the way, hollow trees, cracks in trees, branch scars can be the starting point for cavities, or can even be cavities. But some of the species that will use those cavities include the little owls. This is a saw-whet owl, which I understand are common here on Bainbridge Island, or not common, but they're here. Little cavity nester, or totally cool animal, the flying squirrel. And I understand from Bainbridge Land Trust people that you have indeed flying squirrels on the island. Really a cool animal. If you don't have them, one way to find out is to put up a couple of boxes. Something else that'll use cavities are bats. We have 18 species of bats in the state of Washington. About half of them are migratory. They've got to go inside of something. They love hollow trees. They love eaves of old sheds. Sometimes they'll use a bat box. And even our Douglas squirrel, it was brought up to me, is like, how do you get Douglas squirrels on your property? Well, they eat conifer cones and they need to go inside of something. So these are some of the animals that benefit from the presence of cavities, and that's woodpecker made, or something in the softened dead wood, which we've already mentioned is a really, really important habitat component. Well, a lot of times people say, well, why don't I just put up some boxes? Well, you know what? It's not a bad idea, actually. And I'm a fan of properly constructed nest boxes. And something about nest boxes, and you can look up your own plans. This is an imitation of a pileated woodpecker cavity. It's roughly the same dimensions, a big hole, roughed up on the inside so things can climb in and out of them, that sort of thing. This you would mount up at least 8 feet in a tree in the forest so that the owls and the squirrels and things could use it, or the flying squirrels. They would use this scale. This one is a smaller songbird box. And something I really like about boxes is they get used. It's pretty darn interesting, and you never know what you're going to get. Oh man, what do you do with that, Archie? So this one is an imitation of this one is pretty darn interesting because the proportionality is roughly the same. And so that's one thing about boxes is if you are going to make them, you want the hole to be up higher and you want the proportions to be about the same. So won't say much more about that other than there's a problem with nest boxes. If you do decide to put some up, I always suggest put a bunch of them up. Put up 10, do 20, and then check them, maintain them, fix the roof. The roof is often where it fails. And you'll be surprised. And also when you look every year, you get to see if somebody had used it, who's been in the box. So I want to draw your attention to a box right up there in that tree. And it's sort of a case study for the problem with nest boxes if you don't maintain them. They can last a long time. So the best strategy though is to have some dead wood. Doesn't have to be giant diameter Douglas fir snags, but those are great. But whatever, any species, broken top, big leaf maple, etc. And add a few of these babies because it does work. And your habitat is in your hands.